looking at the gaming market and working with FGS on that. Pretty well established in the UK. We've got a facility in the Shard in London, as well as a SOC in Milton Keynes, which obviously runs 24/7. And also we've got a facility in. Oh, thank you, mate. There you
That's
go.
all right.
That, yeah.
I'm all give.
Yeah.
I'm all give. Yeah.
And we have a SOC in the Philippines as well. But I guess I wanted to talk a bit about how we kind of approach the market and what our kind of philosophy on it is. We've got a sort of an offering which we call the 5 pillars, which is basically our sort of end-to-end guide to cybersecurity. As a pure services organization, we work with a lot of different vendors, but really for us it's about augmenting your teams and working with you to sort of fill the gaps in your team, if you like. As you guys know, cybersecurity is a 24/7 game. It doesn't sleep, and the market's getting more sophisticated, more driven, using better tools, SaaS platforms, cloud computing, teams working all around the clock to deliver really sophisticated attacks, to the point where now, you can go from a breach incident to a full scale, total takeover in less than an hour, basically. And we're seeing that coming down all the time. It used to be sort of days before an organization, if they were trying to target you, would 48 hours typically to get from that initial entry point across the organization. Nowadays we're seeing that in under an hour, basically. So speed of response is kind of what we're all about, and that first piece of our offering is called Defend at Speed. So it's not only about having the SOC and that capability, but the ability to control that blast radius when you do have an attack, basically.
So you've got people 24 hours a day. We're not talking people on call here, are we? I know the answer, by the way.
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah. Good question. Good question.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. But no, absolutely right. Because that's the thing that a lot of times, why Defend at Speed is the first one, because that's often our entry point into our clients, right? It's complex, costly to build an in-house security team. Only really large-scale banks can really justify it. You've got obviously your actual SOC team, which is a team of 8. That's our eyes on screen, 24/7, working in a rota, of course. You've got to cover that for holidays as well. You've got to cover that for sick time. You've got to cover that for peaks. But outside of that as well, you need analysts, you need incident responders. There's a whole team of people that sit around that as well. So that that's often the entry point where our clients is that it is about having those eyes on screen. It's a bit like when I delivered this speech in Gibraltar. Obviously Gibraltar, similar sort of militarial history to Malta. And, I likened it, if you like, to the Gibraltar defences, talking about the walls and the cannons and, building up your security posture sort of thing. But at the end of the day, people forget that obviously that radar that sits on top of Gibraltar, that's probably the most important thing, because that gives you that ability to spot an attack when it's coming, and that ability to know the enemy is on the way, and therefore the ability to raise your defence capability. So unless you have that SOC with the eyes on screen, then your ability to respond effectively in the time that's required is greatly diminished, basically.
I think one of the big things that we've come across since we've worked together is when people have got SOCs and it's people on call, with that time for breach to actually people taking over less than an hour, you're phoning somebody up, they don't answer the phone, you're trying to get through to them, they're not even talking or even engaged for maybe half an hour. By that time it might be too late. Yeah? I mean, it sounds great, you've got people on call. Or if you look at it another way, you're on call, they work for 2 hours, they're not going to come in the next day. Yeah? And so there's financial things there, there's productivity side, but the breach to when they take over inside your systems, phoning people up who are tired, Maltese are very much like the British. Yeah, we all like a drink. You phone somebody up on call and they've had quite a lot to drink. And God forbid, they might have driven home. Yeah. Yeah, in Malta it could well happen, I heard it has, yeah. And so that for me was eye-opening when we started working together. And now that time from breach to control is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, that on-call side is starting to fracture, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, some of the vendors, Microsoft, for example, will say it's actually down to about 42 minutes now for that, to happen, sort of thing. So And imagine that, right? You're that on-call engineer. You're immediately into a firefight situation where everything is at stake. It could be your great assets, your hugely valuable data, reputational damage. Immediately being thrust into that. If you're a typical SOC analyst, they're not sort of like highly experienced people. That's a lot of pressure for an individual to deal with. And classically, right, these are all at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday as well. They're not not kind of working hours. You're actively targeted on the time that your organisation will known to be out of hours sort of thing. Yeah. But then outside of that as well, you obviously defend at speed. Obviously, that's a key one. That's often where we sort of first engage. Then it builds into things like trust no one, so zero trust architecture, and that ability to authenticate everyone that you deal with. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with that as a sort of concept. So very much working with our partners and vendors to really sort of help to build out the zero trust architecture, because it's very simple in concept and obviously quite difficult to execute and really sort of keep on top of that level of authentication, as I'm sure you know. Outside of that, the next step is we talk about borderless protection. So that's really about building that architecture and making it scale and suit the individual wherever they are in the world. Many of the companies I've spoken to already this evening, I know you're operating in multi-jurisdictions. You've got complexity with that. You've got licensing agreements, you've got probably local IT teams, you've got corporate IT teams, you've got different jurisdictions, different working hours. And how do you know that when your corporate executives, who are often the best point of entry because they've got massive amounts of access and will railroad their own internal teams, Exactly, right, yeah, like nearly always, right, because they'll just turn this shit off. It's like, my computer's running slow, take it all off. I'm tired of this 2FA bullshit, And actually, of course, then they're flying around the world. So you've got to build that borderless protection around these guys. You've got to really build that architecture that allows, all your staff to move around and really make sure that they're protected wherever they are. You've got the right level of policy for the time of day, the country they're operating in, and the level of, of authority in the company, basically. So that's borderless protection. You've then obviously got, as I'm sure you guys know as well, you've got the security first mindset. So that's about making sure that your staff are obviously that your main entry point into your organisation. Often through email is a classic entry point, but also as well through password access and other data breaches. So a security first culture, often we'll work with clients to roll out testing platforms, but also put in the sort of policies and procedures that drives that security first. So ISO 27001 would obviously be a key one that we would always recommend. In the UK, you've got some of the things like Cyber Essentials, but we also work with other international standards as well.
Like the NISTs and things like that. NIST is really taking a bit of a foothold as well. But you can talk to Andy about that later.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then finally, from our perspective, it's all about leaders informed as well. So again, even if you've got that internal security team, because they're internal to you, they spend all the time getting dragged into projects and meetings and all that kind of stuff. So the appropriate level of reporting and actually having that reporting done at all the key different levels across your organization is another way in which we help to support our clients as well. So when we say leaders informed, it's you've got your C-level reporting, so the management team, very high level, to understand what my security posture looks like and how we fit from a regulatory perspective, obviously in the gaming market. As I know you're all aware, the regulation is increasing. You've got to have KYC, different markets you're operating in. All these different markets have different regulations, so massive layers of complexity. And actually making sure that your security, as well as all your infrastructure and the way you operate in those countries, is obviously fit for those markets as well. Yeah. We again support our clients with that kind of level of reporting. So good technology reports with lots of rich detail for the technical guys, and then much more kind of high level, board level reports talking about regulations and risk for the top level guys, basically. And we work a lot with obviously good partners like FGS as well. It's obviously great to work with these guys, very big in gaming, and obviously get their expertise, the understanding of the market as well. Having established in Gibraltar, we're very keen to establish a similar level of success in Malta as well. So appreciate the opportunity of that. And finally, I think from our perspective, whole host of different clients, lots on our website you can go and see, obviously. But work with some very I guess, very security conscious, as well as lots of fintechs and banks and gaming companies and all that kind of other stuff in there. Obviously, some of our logos are on our website, many of them aren't, because obviously a lot of our clients are very security conscious, but the ones on our website have been validated as you know, okay for us to use that kind of stuff. So, and really it's a bit like FGS, it's about the relationship. You know, we're a service organization as well. It's about working with you, your teams, and understanding what fits your environment as well. So it's a very much, you know, us to be led by you as to the areas where you want to do. We're a full service provider, so everything from penetration testing, upfront auditing, consultancy, right the way through to those managed services is, you know, where we engage basically. So
Brilliant.
Here to support you guys, and thanks for the evening.
Top man. Thank you very much. And one last thing which you never mentioned, but I see so many SOC, managed SOC, I say inverted commas, where all they do is contact you when there's an issue. 68% of all issues are sorted out by these guys, and they just tell you in the morning, or tell you something that, yeah. So it's sorted out, their trends, they follow the trends, and then they sort it out themselves because they know your business, it gradually grows, like an AI type thing. And so that is massive. Instead of just telling you every time there's an issue, you decide whether it's really a priority or whether it's not. They'll sort it out. I mean, it's just a different class. So, love working with Dominic and the team, and so have a chat with them. So, yeah, thank you very much.
I've got a bit of a story on that one actually. So, just briefly, that was one of the game-changing things for us about 6 years ago, because obviously you know, security was just a bit of a thing. You know, we've got email filtering, we've got AV. It was just a bit of a thing you did, roll out a few appliances and tick the boxes. And obviously, you know, in the last sort of 6-7 years, of course, you know, the game's completely changed, as I know you know. And actually, that was a big thing for us. So one of the world's biggest travel companies, a household name you would absolutely recognize, and we were monitoring their environment. And actually, we saw a server wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. And the server went absolutely crazy. It was filling up all the memory. The CPU was going crazy. And we actually took that server online, and that actually had, it was a malware attack, and basically would have taken everything that company had, would have been front page news, and could have even, you know, put the whole business at risk basically. So, and that's the ability to not only monitor, but also actually defend and you know, do that. Obviously, it takes a lot of policy and integration with your teams to make sure that we're doing the right stuff, of course, but that's the kind of the capability we have, yeah.
Dominic.
Cool, thanks very much.
Top man. Thank you very much.